there's this script that's being run right now, and it's loosely affiliated under the umbrella of anti-racism. But if you see how certain portions of our society are internalizing that, what it actually does is like a mind virus that causes you to see racism everywhere. And I found a advice column where this young girl writes in to this advisor, and she's like, my boyfriend's not posting enough about Black Lives Matter. He protests every day, but he's really not doing the work. And I went and I saw all of his friends aren't posting enough, and I don't know what should I do about making them do this thing. And the advice columnist was like turned it again back on her. It's this constant involution of. And it seems like a broken Christianity. A lot of the elements that I see in the left are a hobbled form of mechanisms within the church, but they're not. They're kind of broken loose, and then they just spin off on their own.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what it is. And I am probably going to make a video about this soon, but I can give you a hint of what I'm going to say, which is that in the Bible, there's a warning about all these things. Like in Scripture, in the New Testament, all of these patterns are played out in a way to help us see what's going to happen. And so, for example, Christ talks about on the Sermon on the Mount, Christ talks about the poor and about helping, about the special role that those who suffer, that those who are persecuted, that all of that, the special role that they play. And so the left, that's what they have. That's the let's say liberal Christianity and the left, they've taken that aspect of Christ and they've ran with it, and they said this is Christianity. Or not, even if they're secular, like this is it. This is the main thing. Mm-hmm. And the value of what Christ said in those moments is absolutely true. And the things that Christ said are absolutely true, but you always have to see the story, the full story. And so there's another part in Scripture, and Christ has very few interaction with Judas. Like, there are very few, but those that he has are key to understanding his interactions. And the one interaction that he has is when a woman comes to wash his feet with perfume. So she takes this expensive perfume and she washes his feet. And so it's an act of worship. She's worshiping Christ. And Judas's answer is, he says, we should have given that money to the poor. But he wasn't really thinking that. He was thinking, we should give that money to the poor. I want that money for myself. Like it was a duplicitous act. It was a way to attract attention, things onto himself, right? And that's when Christ gets angry with them and says, you'll always have the poor, but the Son of Man, he won't be with you for very long. And so he's setting up the hierarchy. He's saying, of course you have to care for the poor. Of course you have to, but you have to do it in the right order. It can't just be that. Worship comes first. Then from the worship, if you don't want the helping the poor to become a self-serving kind of perverted act, then you have to have worship first. You have to look up first and then look down and help others. But if you just do the look down, it's going to become disturbing and it's going to become an inversion. And I think that's what we're seeing now.
Or if the act of looking up is looking upon your own mightiness or your own virtue in a way.
Right. But you have to look up beyond you, like in that sense. And so I think that in that story, you really do have this image of the anger of Christ at things just not being in their right place. Because if you just took that story, you could just isolate that and say, well, here's Christ saying, you shouldn't help the poor. But of course, that's not what he's saying, because in other places he will say that abundantly.